Alright, welcome to Digital Imaging. This is Mrs. Adrian, and I'm going to navigate you through a few of the beginning projects here from afar, even though I'm at home with my new little baby. I still want to be kind of a little voice in this class and kind of show you some of the basics you need to know. So, for this first project here, we are going to work with Adobe Photoshop, and you're going to get to learn some of the basic tools, the basic layout, and kind of having fun creating your own little design. First, you're going to want to open Adobe Bridge. Go under the Start menu, go into All Programs, Adobe Web Design and Web Premium, so it's one of the folders down here, and Adobe Bridge will probably be the first one to pop up. So go ahead and click on that. You'll get something like this to open up. Find Computer, located here on the side, and then you should have a symbol here that says Handout. So click on that. You're going to go into High School, Adrian, first one that pops up, and go to Digital Imaging. Okay, now we're in Quarter 1, so click that folder. This is Week 1, and you have 2 images in here right now. You're going to want to open Couple in a Beach. Now when you have Bridge open, when I double click, it should open up straight away in Photoshop. Okay, if I open this through like a different navigation, I might have to right click and tell it to open in Photoshop. So I've gotten it here to open up in Photoshop. So first thing I'm going to want to do, if I'm working with a picture like this, we're calling this Couple on a Beach. You see you got a man and a woman here. Looks like they're enjoying a glass of champagne on this beautiful setting in the beach. But we have some obviously distracting elements, including the words down here and this watermark stamp up here. So we want to get rid of those so we can work with this image and create a beautiful little scene. And this is kind of a preview. We are going to get rid of these words, get rid of this watermark, and then put some of our own unique elements in here to create our little design. So, first thing we're going to do is concentrate on how to remove these words down here. So, you have your tools in Photoshop. Your tools are located to the left. Now, before I talk too much about the tools, I want to make sure that you reset your workspace. This whole area is your workspace before you get started. So you do that by going under Window, Workspace, and then making sure Essentials is checked. If it's not, check that, and then going down and hitting Reset Essentials. That's just going to make sure that your Tools panel and your panels over here are all going to look the same as mine here. You have the basic tools out and you're ready to start. Okay, so we got our tools located here on the left. Now your first lesson in Photoshop in Classroom in a Book is going to go through a lot about these tools and how to set up your workspace and arranging everything. But I'll just tell you a couple very basic things. If you click this arrow right here, this double arrow, you can get a double toolbar, so they're all right next to you, right next to each other, and some people find this more accessible. Or if you click back, they're going to be all stacked in one column like this. For this tutorial, I'm going to work with them all in one column. That's what I'm more familiar with. So, in the second panel down, there is a tool that looks like a stamp. This is the Clone Stamp tool. That's what we're going to be working with at first here. You'll notice that all these tools, almost all of them, have a little arrow in the corner. What that means is if you click and hold, there's another tool underneath of it, at least one more. Like here's the pattern stamp tool. Make sure you have the Clone Stamp tool. Another way you can make sure of that is just hover your mouse over it for a minute and it'll show up like that Clone Stamp tool. The S there, what that means is if I would hit the keyboard shortcut S, then I could instantly get the Clone Stamp tool. So for instance, this is the Selection tool or the Move tool. So that's a V. So if I hit V with my keyboard right now, it switches to the Move tool. If I hit S, it switches back to the Clone tool, the Clone Stamp tool. Okay, now over here on the right side, you have your Layers panel. In Photoshop, we work with layers. That means you can work on one part of the image at a time and you can stack layers on top of one another. It's a non-destructive way of working on images and it gives you a lot more control over what you're doing, what you're editing at one time. So this is our background layer right now, and we don't want to work on that. We want to keep the background layer preserved. It's called non-destructive editing, so that in case we go too far, make a mistake, we always have the background information to return to. So we're going to create a new layer on top of the background layer to work on for this first step. Now in the bottom here, there's a little symbol. It looks like a post-it note with the corner turned up. That is your new layer. So you click on that, and all of a sudden I have a new layer here on top of my background. When you're working with layers, they're just going to come up layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, and so on. You want to make sure you're labeling and naming those layers as you go so that you know what's on them later when you have a lot of layers. So I'm going to double click where it says layer 1, and for now I'm going to label this clone stamp tool so I know what I've done on that layer. So I have that layer selected. See, I click the layer and that means it's selected. You can only have one layer selected at a time. Now, I want to be on the clone stamp tool layer. Now, to start working with the clone stamp tool, up here, these are some more controls for the tool that you're on. You can see as I click through the tools, this panel up here is going to change based on the specific tool that I've clicked on. So with the clone stamp tool, it should look like this, and you have a drop-down menu towards the right here. It should say current and below. That's what we want it to say. You could also select current layer or all layers. What that means is this is a clone stamp tool. So as you might guess, we're cloning something. This is asking you, what do you want to clone? Do you want to clone only from the current layer that you're on? Which, no, because there's nothing on this layer that we just made. We don't want to work directly on the background. Okay, all layers. Now that would be, say I had another layer. If I had something on there, it would sample from anything on all of those layers. Okay, and I want to get rid of that. I don't need it. So I'm just going to click, drag, stick it in the dumpster, a little garbage can there. Okay, or you have current and below. That means it'll sample anything on this layer, so anything I put on this layer, it'll sample from there, and any layer below it. So we're going to go with that. Now we're going to zoom in. For correcting these letters and getting rid of them, we're going to need to work a lot closer than this. A few different ways you can do that. You have a tool over here that looks like a magnifying glass. If you click that, that's your zoom tool. Okay, and having your zoom tool, if I just click, it's going to zoom in a little bit. You can see that little plus in there. Kind of wherever I click on is where it focuses in on. If I hold the Alt key and click, it'll zoom out. Another neat feature, if I click and drag to the right, I'll zoom in. If I drag, click, and drag to the left, I'll zoom out. So those are some kind of quick ways to work with it. Another one that I really like to use, it's a keyboard shortcut. If you hold Alt, or Control plus, that's going to zoom you in. Control minus will zoom you out. Hold the Control key and then just click the plus to go in, or click the minus to zoom out. So we're going to zoom in close on these letters down here. I'm going to start on this side. Make sure my clone stamp tool is selected again. Now up here on the left of this panel up top, you get some more controls. The hardness is going to be, at 0% it means it's like this. Very soft around the edges. At 100% it's like this. Hard edges. We're going to work with 0% hardness. So we have soft edges. And we can start at about 40 pixels. That's how big it is. So to adjust the size of your brush, you can drag this bigger or drag it smaller. Okay, another way you can do that, if I click off of that, is the bracket keys that are right next to the P. So you can see my brush here. If I hit the bracket right next to the P, that makes it smaller. The bracket to the right of that makes the brush tool bigger. Now that helps also when you're working in a hurry to make the quick adjustments like that. So I'll start here. I got it up 35, and that'll work. Now to sample from the layer, in order to clone it, you're going to want to hold down the Alt key. When you hold down the Alt key, you'll notice that your brush has turned into what looks like a target. Okay, and that is the target that you're sampling from. So I'm going to click right here next to that S. Now you notice as I move my brush that that little part that I sampled from is coming with me. So now obviously you're not going to do this, but I just want to show you a little more specifically what it does. If I were to start painting up here now, it starts from that spot I selected and it paints everything around it. Okay, now obviously I don't want that there. So I could go Edit, Undo Clone Stamp Tool. Maybe I did want it. Edit, Redo Clone Stamp Tool. You'll notice the keyboard shortcut for that is Control-Z. So I can hit Control-Z, it'll go away, Control-Z will come back. Now, what if I had done one layer like this and then I had let go and clicked and done it again? Now I want to get rid of all of that. If I hit Control-Z, only the last step will go away and come back. There is an option for a step backwards, and that's going to be Alt-Control-Z, or you can go under the menu, but I prefer Alt-Control-Z. So Alt-Control-Z will step me back. Take that away, hit it again, it'll take that away, and it'll go back several steps that you have done. Okay, so back to my earth scenes down here. Hold the Alt key, I'm going to do that sample again, and I'm just going to start mostly by painting over the S. Now, here's what happened. If I keep going without letting go of the mouse, I'm just going to paint my S in here. So I'm just moving it all over. Not what I want to do, so Control-Z, sample from here again. I just want to paint over my S. Now if I let go, and then kept painting, it would sample from what I put there. Problem I have with this right now is you notice these dots that are repeating over and over again from what was here. It makes it look patterned. And that's a dead giveaway for someone who's used the clone stamp tool. You can tell that this part does not look natural. So I'm going to Control-Alt-Z that a few times. Just cover up my S again. And then maybe I'll sample from a little further out here to avoid that. Just do a little bit at a time. And then I can sample from here on this other side of the dots. If I wanted to get rid of the one extra dot, I could do that too. So I'm clicking the Alt key and clicking for a sample and then dragging it over. You want to work slowly. Make sure that you're not copying the letters over top of one another. Making sure you're not looking too patterned. If you are, like here, grab from another area and just drag a little longer. I'll get rid of some of that patterning for you. Yeah, so now you can see I've gotten rid of the word scene. Now, to show you what I've done, I can turn this layer off. Clone Stamp Tool layer are all the layers have an eyeball next to them. That's to show whether or not that layer is visible. If I want that layer invisible, so I only see the layers underneath of it, I can click this eyeball. Now it's gone. I can see my original layer. So you can tell what I've done. I've gotten rid of the word scenes and made it look like just part of the beach. Pretty natural. So I'm going to keep going with that. Make my brush smaller at points if I need. I might want to take some of this yellow and pull it in over earth here. So work slowly, avoid too much patterning, and try and make it look naturalistic. And you want all traces of the words to be gone. Okay. So I would keep working with all these letters. I'm going to show you quick what happens when I'm working with the shadow here. I'm going to zoom in a little closer, make my brush with the bracket tool a little smaller. So I'm going to make sure when I'm covering over these letters in the shadow that I'm sampling from the shadow. And I want to pay close attention to the edges. So I might click the edge here and copy some of that edge, making sure I'm not bringing the shadow outside of the edges. So I maintain that same shape here.